Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to our post-show Secrets of the 1%. I'm so excited to be here with you. I feel like, I was following this show before it was a show. We made it a show. We have an amazing host, Amelia Thomas from Empire Capital Ventures. And the thing that's so great, and I hope you guys are getting a lot out of this, is that Amelia has been taking these very large kind of concepts that sometimes I think people talk about and we just kind of gloss over because we're not really sure or what have you. But Amelia's been taking these concepts and breaking them down and making us understand why they're so important for our lives with regard to wealth building. And so let's bring in Amelia Thomas. She is the managing partner of Empire Capital Ventures. Hi, Amelia.
Good evening, Renee. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. It's so good to see you. I love tonight's episode. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about which was our favorite episode. And honestly, this was one of my favorite episodes. By the way, for those of you who are watching us on the Facebook group, please come into the chat. Send Amelia your questions. This is your opportunity to get your questions answered by Amelia. But so if you're in the chat, please come in and tell us who you are, where you're from, and your questions for Amelia. So, Amelia, the reason I like this one is it seems so, I don't know, seems like kind of a basic building block for this larger thing that we're trying to accomplish. It's not super sexy, but it's really, really important, right?
Absolutely. I think as a step in our wealth building journey, we really take for granted how many days we're going to have left on this earth. I actually saw you want them to go that you maintain control. We need to be a little bit more proactive when it comes to our estate planning.
I love when you said, if you don't, not having a plan is a plan and it's not a good one. And I think that's really what we're talking about, Amelia, is we're sort of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't we sort of like, laying the foundation for generations of wealth that come, after us? We're not just, we don't need to spend all of our time building wealth. We also need to be thinking about protecting it. And that's really what this falls square under, right?
Absolutely. So when we are building more sophisticated plans for our clients, we're always thinking about, yes, how do we grow it? But we're also is equally concerned with how to protect it and how to pass it. Most people, when they pass on wealth, it really does not last past the next generation. And if we really want to be serious about closing the wealth gap of the African American community or the Black community in this country, we have to get a lot more serious about protecting the assets that we have and making sure that our families are educated so they can grow that wealth and not squander that wealth. And I think that is, part of the problem that we are also experiencing right now. You know, we we now have access to more information than we ever had previously. And now that we have access to this information, we're not doing a good enough job of making sure that our loved ones, our kids, our nieces and nephews are equally as knowledgeable about why we make certain decisions regarding our money or why we've made certain decisions regarding our assets so they can continue that legacy moving forward.
One of the things that you talked about, you mentioned wanting to share a personal story. And by the way, those of you who are coming in, please, this is your opportunity to ask Amelia a question about estate planning, which was the episode tonight for Secrets of the 1%. I look back on my own sort of wealth building journey. And I think one of the smartest things I did years ago was my mother had dementia with Alzheimer's like properties. And before she, while she still had her faculties, we went and saw a lawyer and we went and got all of that stuff taken care of. And as difficult as those things were at the time, I can't imagine how hard it would be on the back end, if you will. You know what I mean? So it's like, yes, you have to have uncomfortable conversations, but you're saving yourself really uncomfortable conversations, after the person passes.
Absolutely. And oftentimes, guess what? Once the person passes, sometimes you still need to have conversations, and those conversations are never had because we don't properly deal with grief either in our community. And so, we just want to push it to the back of our minds and try to, forget about, some of those decisions that we absolutely need to be making, because we did not plan for them prior to someone passing, prior to one of our loved ones passing. And, as I shared in the video about my mom and certain decisions that she will make, right? About the importance of making sure that, my own estate planning is in order because I know, I'm very well aware of my mom's religious convictions. And her convictions are not mine, and I don't see eye to eye, with her on that. The same with my dad. When he was on when he had a major heart attack and we didn't think he was going to make it, but he was in his right mind. He was able to speak, and I had been begging him and my mom for years to meet with the estate planning attorney. I had paid for everything, and it was on that hospital bed, after he had that heart attack. He asked, he said, "Hey, do you think the attorney will still talk to me?" And I was like, "Absolutely. You could talk, you could think, you could speak, there's nothing wrong with you mentally." So yeah, and so we had to get the attorney there because again, my dad's convictions about what he would want happen to him are not the same as my mom's. And he was like, "Amelia, don't let me be hooked up to a machine." And I'm like, "Well, I can't make that decision. I'm not your wife. Mom is
Wow.
still around." So, those conversations, while they are uncomfortable, they are very important, because you will want to make sure that that person's wishes are being followed, in the event that they are, unable to make those decisions for themselves.
Yeah, and just you touched on it just a second ago about like so much is going on after a person passes, and it's so much easier. It's somewhat difficult in the beginning to have those hard conversations, but it's so much easier once everybody's clear on the direction and the wishes, and all you have to do is follow it. We have a question here, Amelia. Somebody said, it's Alicia says, would you share the best place to start for one, layman terms education on estate planning, and two, assessment for best path for estate planning? So, layman terms for education on estate planning and assessment for the best path for estate planning.
Yeah, so I would absolutely probably just start with YouTube. Believe it or not, I would probably just search estate planning for dummies. I know that sounds ugly, but you will probably get some really good videos about some topics broken down into layman's terms that were really easy to understand and easy to implement. That's probably where I would start first. Just on YouTube. The second place that I would probably start excuse me, the second place that I would probably start is reaching out to like your local bar association to see if they have any law clinics or if they have any law schools that do pro bono work, just so you can see like, hey, are there any organizations that are doing free estate planning, hosted by local attorneys, that you can now take advantage of. So I would look for my local resources in my local community. Sometimes the cities and counties, they even host local fairs where people can come and meet with attorneys pro bono and get some essential estate planning done. And then if you also have a relationship with an attorney, I would probably just ask them, like, "Hey, do you know anyone that does estate planning?" And maybe just have an initial consultation. That initial consultation may cost you a couple of $100s, but it will be probably some of the best money that you'll spend because now you can tell that person specifically what's going on with your situation and what you're concerned about and what you want to happen with your assets, and they'll be able to give you better recommendations that are customized to you, and not just the general public about what you should be doing next. Everyone may not need a revocable trust, but everyone needs some form of estate planning. So I would say those are probably some of the best places to start.
All right, here's a good question, Amelia. Is a handwritten letter enough, or must you have an attorney involved for an
Mhm.
estate plan? That's a
That's a great
I just
question.
found
And it's
it
probably a question. That's a great
well,
question. And honestly, it's going to be a question that's better suited for an attorney. And the reason why I make that recommendation is number one, I'm not an attorney, I'm a wealth manager. Um, but number two, different states, different counties, they have different rules, they have different laws. That may be okay for some municipalities, it may not be okay for others. So, unfortunately, there isn't just a quick, cut and dry answer for that. You will need to speak with a local estate planning attorney or someone who can give you some legal advice to specifically answer that question.
so you mentioned local authorities or county or what have you. So does that mean if what if you live in a different state than your parents or whoever you're, trying to help with the estate planning?
You absolutely need an attorney because now you may have, different states that you have to now take into consideration when you're doing your planning. So some of our clients, they have properties in 7, 8, 9, 10 states. Well, guess what? We now have to consider the laws in all of those different states. So it can get complicated and complex very quickly. So, yes, if you live in one state, but your parents live in another state, and these assets that your parents have will ultimately pass down to you, yes, you're going to have to do some estate planning in the state that your parents live in. You're also going to have to do some estate planning in the state that you live in as a resident. So, yes, it's not uncommon, for people to have to do estate planning in multiple states.
What's that saying? It's better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. I mean, that's what I feel like this comes under, which is we have the information. We know the information is out there. We know it's going to be slightly uncomfortable to have these conversations, but all of those things are better than not having the conversation. Whenever I hear about celebrities dying without a will, I'm like, of all they have the money, they have the resources, they have the like all of this stuff, and I just think why? That seems like such an unnecessary um thing to have to go through.
Absolutely. It is so disheartening. And when you hear about, just the millions, sometimes millions of dollars, that their family spends defending creditors, defending other family members, that did not have to be had they had proper estate planning. Again, the federal government, the local governments, they love it. They love it when you don't have proper estate planning, and attorneys do too. They love it when you don't have proper estate planning because, of course, that's, more fees for them. And that just, again, it just doesn't have to be the case. It just doesn't. Of course, the attorneys want you to prepare, they want you to plan. And those who do prepare and plan, they really do set their families up for success. You never hear about those cases. You never hear about how much money their estate was really worth. You never really hear about creditors coming after them and all of these litigators and all of these lawsuits. You don't hear about any of that stuff. Why? Because they had proper estate planning in place. So, when I hear the sad stories like with Aretha Franklin and Michael Jackson and Whitney and just all of these people, I mean, it's just so devastating because so much money left the Black ecosystem and went into someone else's hands when that did not have to be.
Yeah, exactly. Amelia, we have another question. For a family business, how does adding which family members or not work? My guess, this is Brenda's is asking this question. So my guess is, Brenda, you're asking like, how do you, if you have one irresponsible family member and you don't want them to be on it, or like, I'm not sure if that's what you're asking, Brenda. But again, here's a question, Amelia. For a family business, how does adding which family members or not work?
Mhm.
I guess it has to do with
So
yes, yes, that's
for Brenda, I would need a few more details. However, what I will say is that when it comes to a business, you need to start engaging in what's known as succession planning. And what succession planning does is it allows you to say, hey, in the event that I'm not able to run the business, who can step in and run the business? And if that's a family member, then great. You want to list that family member. If you want to make sure that you have, enough life insurance or enough cash reserves to hire an operator to come in, someone like a complete third party who's going to come in and run that business and make sure that that business stays afloat while the rest of your succession plan is being implemented and carried out. You can do that as well. So, particularly if it's your business and it may be a family business, but you are still the primary person who's running that business, who's making the executive decisions in that business. Obviously you probably have spent a lot of time, resources, and money putting into that business, and you want to protect that. You should want to protect that. And so a part of protecting that is making sure that you do have proper succession planning, which is a form of estate planning, to make sure that, hey, whether you have passed on or you're incapacitated, decisions are going to be made in the best interest of that business to make sure that your interests are fully carried out and that your portion of the wealth related to that business gets passed wherever you want it to be passed to.
Mhm. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I
Yeah,
mean, this
yeah,
is all I hear in all of the shows that we've done so far is about just being, really taking a good look at what you've got. How do you
mhm,
grow it, protect it? But
yeah.
really, it involves, making decisions, because if you don't, those decisions will be made for you, just like you said.
That's right.
So,
They will be made for you. Listen, Renee, people do not understand. Just because you don't make the decision does not mean a decision will not be made.
right.
Again,
I've
I think I
said
mentioned it last
this.
week. People make plans all the time and they don't include you. This is the same. This is the same scenario. When it comes to your money, people always have plans for it. Your money
Yeah,
has a plan for you too.
yeah.
Oftentimes, it won't include you unless you want to be included. So, yes, an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure.
I love it. I love it. It's so true. Amelia, I am just getting such a kick out of these talkbacks with you, because I feel like we're getting a secret. So we already had you reveal the secrets of the 1%. Now we have you again. So this is awesome. And thank you so much for taking the time to do the show with us, because I think it's incredible and it's giving people really good information that they need. And then secondly, to take the opportunity to do this sort of debriefs with us on
No,
the back end.
that's
Next week, we're going to be talking about another good one. Everybody who's listening, next week, this is Secrets of the 1% is going to be about managing your financials during economic downturns. And I think this is a great one, because we know that business is cyclical, and that we may get through this cycle, but it will come around again. And so you've got some real great information on that as well. So yeah.
absolutely. I'm really looking forward to next week's episode.
Okay. All right, Amelia, thank you so much again. And we
Thank
will see
you.
you next week. And
Yes, thank you, everyone.
thank you everybody who tuned in, who asked questions. Appreciate your time on this debrief of Secrets of the 1%. We will catch you around the block. Thanks.